Now we will have a guide's nature columnist. He loves to explore God's creation. He travels the world looking for evidences of creation and the flood, and sharing his discoveries with kids and adults. Before I introduce the presenter, I would like to remember you the large amount of material that we have about creation outside. When you leave, take a moment to look to the books, to the DVDs, to the CDs, because we hope this material will subsidize you and will give you strength in the conviction about creation. But at this moment, I would like to invite our guest, Rick Aguilera. But where is him? I can't find him. Rick, where are you?
In the beginning of time, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters. For 6 days, God created. On that 6th day, God formed man from the dust, and he breathed his spirit into him. And everything that God created was good.
Everything that God created was good. Amen. That's words to understand and absorb into our life, because everything that God created is good. I mean, wow, that presentation, Dr. Reese, amazing. So really, we all want to get to the truth. We want to get to the bottom of everything and make sure that we're believing in the truth. Nobody wants to get tricked. Nobody wants to be deceived, because that's what the enemy is doing right now to billions of people, trying to get them to believe in some simple lies, that the Bible is a myth, that God didn't create life, that life evolved over millions of years, and that God doesn't exist. It's a cheap trick, is what it is. A cheap trick. Like this little handkerchief here. I got nothing in my hands except the handkerchief. But if I put the handkerchief into my fist here, I can make it disappear. It's gone. Or is it? Or is it still in my hand? That's what Satan's doing. A cheap trick to convince the entire planet of these lies. And I want to make sure that I don't get tricked. And you guys don't get tricked. And that everybody out there doesn't get tricked. So we're going to do an investigation. We're going to have fun along the way. You guys like to have fun, right? Okay. Because I like to have fun. I tell my kids all the time, make your own fun. We're going to check out the difference between creation and evolution. We're going to check out the evidence. See what is what. See what is real, what is a lie. So evolution teaches that in the very beginning, billions and billions of years ago, the universe started at this big event called the Big Bang. A Big Bang. And the funny thing is they teach that the Big Bang came from nothing. How's that for science? Can something come out of nothing? No scientist would sign up for that. Yet, we're expected to believe that the origins of our universe, including time, energy, matter, space, came out of nothing. So let's check out the evidence for evolution. One of the things they love to talk about is the fossil record, things that we find underground, all sorts of stuff. They like to show this picture around, right? Transitional species, right? We're man now, but before that, we were these lesser man-type things and these other ape-like creatures. And before that, if we actually go off the screen over here, it keeps going down, right? The amphibians and fish and frogs, all the way to the beginning. You know where they say we came from? Slime. I got some here with me. Maybe you've seen some of this stuff before. This gooey slime that looks kind of like booger. I'm just trying to be honest here. Get it in there. How do you like believing the idea that we came from slime? I don't think so either. I don't like that at all. The Bible tells us that we were created with so much detail. It's impressive. So we see all these fossils in the ground, right? Billions and billions and billions of fossils. There's a trilobite up there. It's a small extinct creature that we don't have alive anymore, but here's one of them, found in the lowest layers, buried, alive. We find entire creatures, totally complete, intact, all the bones buried. Here's me at a dinosaur dig this summer, and in Jordan on another dig. Tons of stuff we find buried underground. Lots of evidence. None of it comes with a tag, though, so we have to interpret it. Here's one of the ones that evolution talks about as their evidence. Nebraska man, right? They have a bunch of man, Java man, Nebraska man, all these men. This drawing, this creature, this species came from one tooth. That was a discovery, one tooth. And from that one tooth, a great artist came up with that. Yeah, a lot of imagination, right? That's scary when this is the kind of evidence that they have for this idea of evolution. And it's the same thing with all these other guys. A little tooth here, a little bone here, and wham, a great artist. The evidence is weak, but they proclaim it like it's a done deal. It's a slam dunk. I mean, look at these kind of things that they put out. This is what a chimp looks like. That's fine. But this is one of those drawings that they put out, one of these sculptures that they put out to convince everybody about evolution. And look at the liberties they take. Look at the eyes. Looks like human eyes. Now, there's no such thing as eyes that can be fossilized. But yet, they take the liberty to draw it however they want to draw it to get you to believe in their agenda. Because there's no evidence for this. Yet, there it is in the museums. And we have to be careful about that. Just because it's sitting in some fancy named museum does not make it real. We have to be careful, and we have to prepare our kids for that as well. More evidence for evolution, dating machines. You guys know what those are, right? These fancy machines, you put a thing in it, and you push a button, it tells you how old it is, billions of years old, millions of years old, whatever. How do those things work? How old is this stuff? Because you go to museums, you go to national parks, and they'll tell you everything is millions or billions of years old. You guys know what that is, right? Petrified wood. I got a piece right here. Petrified wood. This is a piece of wood, but now it's not wood anymore. It's stone. It's been fossilized. But this is not normal because, I mean, you look at it and you actually see the rings, the detail, the bark and everything. Something's happened here. And you go to these places and they'll tell you it's millions of years old. Does the petrification process really take millions of years? Actually, it doesn't. We can now actually petrify wood in a lab in days. We have examples of farmers who have this fence post that they pull up after 20 or 30 years. The top of it is wood, but the bottom has been petrified solid. There's places like Mother Shipton Cave in England where you can go with your favorite stuffed animal, they dip it in this water and come back 4 or 5 months later, they pull it up, it's been completely petrified. This is a big misconception. Petrification has nothing to do with time. It has to do with the right conditions. And this is a huge misconception. It has nothing to do with time. Time has nothing to do with petrification. It has to do with the right conditions. In the case of petrified wood, most of the time it's because it got buried alive and preserved. Because, right, you see what happens when a tree falls down in the bushes, right? It rots, it decays, it's gone in a matter of a decade or two. Yet we have a tree that's perfectly preserved with the rings are even intact. We have other evidence from places like this. Anybody know the name of this famous mountain? Mount St. Helens. Something pretty interesting happened at Mount St. Helens. 32 years ago. Wow. Wow. This is real. But for a lot of us, this is very real. You guys remember when this happened, right? A lot of us. I mean, when I do these talks for kids, they're like, wow, but most of us were there and alive. We saw that on TV that Sunday morning. That was amazing to see this. Because back then, there was no computer graphics and all this wild stuff that they do on TV now. To see something this real close up was amazing. This is what it looks like now. Mount St. Helens. There's a mile-wide crater on the top. And inside the crater, there is still lava coming out. Now, lava, when it comes out, it turns into rock. How old is the rock that comes out then? It's brand new. Do we need a dating machine to tell us how old it is? No. But when we take those dating machines, because some scientists did a big project and they went up there and they grabbed some of this brand new rock and they put it in their dating machine, you know what it said? 3 million years. Did we really need a dating machine for this case? No. Grand Canyon, another classic example. The same project of scientists that did some testing. They grabbed rocks from the top and grabbed rocks from the bottom. Which one should be older? Bottom, right? That's not what the machine said. The machine says the layers at the top are older. Can we trust these machines, guys? Just because there's a smart-looking guy that tells you something, I mean, remember, the enemy is cunning. He can deceive and trick even the smartest people into teaching his agenda. And it's sad. And I love science, and science is a wonderful thing. But we have to be careful because the enemy can manipulate science to teach what he wants to teach. Dating machines make too many assumptions. That's at the end of the day. I mean, you can do a whole talk on this, but at the end of the day, these machines make too many assumptions, too many things it doesn't know that it has to take a guess on to figure out how old stuff is. Evolution also teaches about changes. Macroevolution, as Dr. Reese was saying a minute ago. How does this work? Because we know that several hundred years ago, there was only a few species of dogs. But then man started breeding them, and suddenly there was more kinds of dogs. And suddenly another 100 years goes by, and there's a whole bunch of more dogs. And another 100 years goes by, and there's a bunch of more dogs. And another 100 years goes by, and it just goes on and on and on. And suddenly now we have hundreds of species of dogs. Of course, evolution looks at this and says, aha, see, look at the change. Look at the change. You can see it right there in the front row. Imagine this over millions of years, though. But that's the problem. You have to imagine it. Because there's no evidence that these creatures are changing into anything except dogs. Right? I don't see any penguins or broccoli or horses up there. All we see is dogs. Variety. Variety. Built into our DNA. Right? I mean, look at you guys. Do you guys all look the same? God made variety. And it's something beautiful and something that should be celebrated. Check it out. This is a boxer bull. It's one of the newest species of dogs. 10 years old species of dog. Brand new. We can go over even and pet him. Hey, doggy. Whoa. You guys all right? Does anybody need a defibrillator or anything? Clear. All we see is dogs. Dog varieties. Chihuahua. Don't worry, he's not going to bite. I'm not going to go over and pet him. The wiener dog, classic. German Shepherd. Poodle. Bad hair day. Poor dogs. They torture them. All we see is dogs. Dogs will always make more dogs. There's absolutely no shred of evidence to prove that any of the creatures that we see on our planet today are changing into anything except what they already are. All we're seeing is variety. There's other huge changes that they like us to believe. Fish breathe through their gills. Humans, mammals breathe with their. But somehow, evolution teaches that this evolved into this. Yeah, that's the order of evolution. That's a pretty big change, isn't it? Now, of the millions and billions of fossils that we find on our planet, don't you think it would make some sense to find at least a few that could show us the steps in between? There's not one. Not one. To show us how this humongous change happened. And we've got billions of fossils at our disposal, but not one shows how this could have happened. All we see is this and that. There's other huge changes. Creatures that are cold-blooded somehow evolved into creatures that are warm-blooded. Completely different ways of heating your body, but there's nothing in between to show us how they made that change. Creatures that are born from an egg somehow evolved into creatures that were born alive, ready to go. Again, no evidence in between. Some sort of a half-egg alive thing. Nothing. Creatures that have their skeleton on the outside, right, a shell with their guts inside, somehow evolved into creatures with their skeleton on the inside. And flesh and hair and fur and stuff on the outside. This is a major, major change. And there's nothing in between in the fossil record to show how these changes would have happened. Did it really happen? Of course, sometimes there's no change. This is a 300 million year old dragonfly. Has it changed from the ones we see today? Great. So some things in 1 million years will change humongously, while in other cases, 300 million years, no change at all. What's that? That's an ant inside of amber. Here's the ant right here inside this amber. Amber is a sticky resin that comes out of a tree, and a little bug comes by, gets stuck in it, and there it is. Eastern Europe, 80 million years old. Has the ant changed? And think about it. We're talking about millions of generations and no change. While in other cases, in 1 million years, they expect you to believe humongous changes and no evidence to support it. What's that? Snake? What's that? Fish. Yeah, I got the fish right here even so you guys can see. No change. Fish is still fish. That's kind of rough, this kind of evidence, right? What happened? Is there lots of change? Is there no change? And either way, there's no evidence to support it. That's the evidence for evolution, guys. That basically sums it up. Missing transitional species, unless you want to count a tooth. And by the way, that tooth of the Nebraska man, remember that one tooth they found? Turns out it belongs to an extinct pig. Yeah. I know you got to give the evolution camp some credit because they did take it out of their books 30 years later. The pictures are still in the books. There's just no evidence now. Their tooth is inadmissible. But the pictures are still there. They still believe that species existed. We just don't have evidence for it now. Sorry, but we still believe in it. Inaccurate dating machines, right? Telling us that 30-year-old rocks are 3 million years old. Huge changes, but no evidence whatsoever in the fossil record. Friends, this is the evolution's evidence. And this is what the enemy is getting billions of people to believe in. So what is some evidence for creation? The Bible is true, amen? Yeah, absolutely. How do we know that? Because there's a bunch of different documents in history that we find that confirm things that are written in the Bible. Different tablets, different persons, different things that happen, people that live, they're confirmed. That's how we confirm and know that things really happen, is because one thing says it, but then we find other documents that talk about the same thing. It must be true. And that's what happens. Places, real places that are in the Bible, they're real places. Jerusalem, right? The Wailing Wall. The very bottommost foundation part of King Herod, right? Remember King Herod, baby Jesus and all that stuff? We have Jericho. Do you guys remember Jericho? What happened at Jericho? 7 days around the wall, and the big trumpet goes out. Walls come down. I'm just trying to keep you guys awake, doing my part. Thank you. There's Jericho. You can go to Jericho. It's a real place. We get evidence from the world population, too. Of course, right now we have 7 billion people on our planet. Here's a growth chart showing how the number's going up as time passes. Of course, when you look at it backwards, it goes downhill and eventually runs to 0, 2. We have pretty good data for the last couple thousand years about how many people have lived on our planet. So we can create a mathematical formula, plug in those numbers, so that we can see where this number eventually runs down to 0. The number actually runs down to about 0. Mathematics here, no creation revolution. Simple math formula, plugging in numbers that we know, and we run out of people going back about 5,000 years. We only have about 5,000 years worth of people at the growth rate that we've seen for the last couple thousand years. We just have to estimate the other 3 using the same growth curve. 5,000 years ago, approximate time of the flood, where 8 people came off the ark. Here's what the number 7 billion looks like, what we have now. Now, let's say that we were to start counting, let's just say 500,000 years ago, and we use that same growth curve, and we apply it, but starting 500,000 years ago. You know how many people should be on our planet if we've really had people around that long? This is what 500,000 years worth of people on our planet looks like. And this is clearly not what we have. You look at the population and you plug in growth rates, we only have 5-ish thousand years worth of people. How do you argue with math? We can look at world history, get more evidence. We look at the history, we look at art, we look at architecture, we look at archaeology, we look at writings, we look at anthropology. All those ologies basically say the same thing. Human history seems to have suddenly appeared about 5,000 years ago. All those, when you go back as far as we can find, it all tapers off right around 5,000 years. Humans have been around for 500,000, 1,000,000 years. Why don't we find anything from 20,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago? And when they appear pretty smart. Building pyramids. Where's the learning curve? They just appear out of nowhere 5,000 years ago with complex languages, building pyramids, civilized cultures. Wow. Interesting. We have more evidence with the calendar, right? We use space to measure time. For example, our planet, to do one complete rotation on itself, takes 24 hours. Our moon, how long does it take for it to do one complete orbit around our planet? About 30 days, 1 month. Moon month, that's where that comes from. How long does it take for our planet Earth to do one complete orbit around the sun? 365 days and a quarter, or a year, whatever you want to call it, a year. That's how we measure time. So let me ask you this. How do we measure 1 week? What in space takes 1 week? Nothing. Yet the entire planet lives on a 7-day week. Where did that come from? I think you know. Because when we look at history, The only explanation for a 7-day week comes from the Bible. And the whole planet is observing a 7-day week without knowing that it's a biblical mandate, that they're following God's plan for your body. And let me tell you, historically it's been tested, like a 9-day week or a 10-day week or whatever. It doesn't work. They had to go back. They tried it for a few decades or whatever, and it was a disaster. They had to go back and wherever the rest of the planet was on, jump on that bandwagon again. Because 7 days is perfect. We have more evidence with the story of the flood, my favorite story in the Bible. Something pretty traumatic happened to our planet, wouldn't you say? Wouldn't there be some evidence left over? I think so. So you guys want to help me out doing a flood orchestra? I do see some kids in the audience, and they love the flood orchestra, so let's see if you guys can help me out. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to divide you guys up, and you're going to do a few sounds for me, all right? So this section, can you guys do this? Very nice. Okay, stop. All right. Then I'm going to go with, you guys right here. You guys are number 2. You guys are going to do this sound. Very good. All right, stop. You guys, I'm going to divide you guys in the middle. So second half, you guys do this. All right, very good. And you guys in the front, give me some bass. You guys are doing this. All right, very good. I think we're ready for our flood orchestra. Are you guys ready? I'm the conductor. Go ahead and hit it. First of all was group number 1. The flood started quietly and slowly. Then group number 2. It got a little louder. And then group number 3. Very good. And then number 4. Something pretty dramatic happened on our planet, didn't it? Now, something like this should leave some evidence behind, and it does leave a lot. First of all, we see our planet organized in layers. Every surface of our planet is organized in layers. Now, there's only one way to organize layers. There's only one way to deposit them into this order. It's with water. That's it. There's no other choice. There's not a big dump truck out there, guy, beep, 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 drop the next load. The only way is with water. And these are huge layers. This is not a little layer here because evolution knows that only water can do this, but their defense is that, well, there's little floods here, little floods there, everything has got organized this way. But how do you explain layers that are 300 feet thick that span from California all the way to England. One layer, same layer. That's a pretty big layer. And if it could only have been deposited by water, what kind of an event would do that? There's lots of problems with layers, right? And they teach that in between each layer is millions of years. This layer, a million years goes by this layer. But that also creates a bunch of huge problems because there's no evidence that time went by during these layers. Because there's no roots, there's no burrowing, there's no animals, there's no topsoil, there's nothing. It's just layer, 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 layer. We see historical evidence because a lot of people think that the flood is a little Bible story for the kids. No, it's not. Did you guys know that the story of the flood is actually documented in over 300 different historical documents on our planet? Not the Bible. From all sorts of countries, Persia, Syria, Asia Minor, Greece, Egypt, Italy, Lithuania, Russia, China, India, in different variations of the details, but they all talk about this event. This is not a Bible story. This is a planetary historical event. We find everything buried, just like we talked about with our petrified wood. Best way to petrify wood? You bury it. You seal it off from the oxygen under the right conditions. It petrifies without rotting, and it's preserved. Same thing with plants. Perfectly preserved. I got one right here. Now look at the leaves. Never got a chance to wilt or die because they got buried alive and preserved quickly before anything could happen to it. And this is how we find all the fossilized plants on our planet. Billions of them. We find coal. Enormous coal seams. And sometimes tiny little coal seams, 6 inches thick. Now, do you know what coal is made of? It's made of biomass. And biomass is anything that used to be alive. This is not rock. This is living matter that got fossilized. Trees, leaves, bushes, bark, animals, insects, whatever, you name it. It's living things that became fossilized under pressure and heat. Where would so much living biomass come from to create massive seams that are the size of entire states? And it's the same thing with the petroleum. There's over 1 million of these oil platforms on this planet, all digging up biomass, buried living stuff. What in the world would cause so much living stuff to be buried on our planet? And we have our fish, like I showed you a few minutes ago. Very well preserved. Because those of you that have owned fish, you know what happens when a fish dies in your fish tank. If you don't take him out in a couple days, he's like gone. Yet here we have a nicely preserved fish. What would do that? It was buried alive and preserved. Tallest mountain in the world is Mount Everest. Do you guys know what we find at the top of Mount Everest? Billions and trillions of fossilized marine creatures, shells, clams, fossilized. The evidence that water once covered our entire surface is overwhelming. Like clams right here. Check this evidence out. I got the clam right here. Notice that it's in its closed position. Now, most clams, or all clams, when they die, you've seen them on the beach, when they die, they relax, it opens up. You find them, oh, poor thing. Yet we find these by the billions also, buried in there, fossilized, shut. Why? Because it never got to die the regular way. It was buried alive and preserved. Check this one out. Petoskey stones. This is the Michigan State Stone. I'm from Michigan. This is our state stone. It's coral. Are we anywhere near an ocean? We're like 1,000 miles from the nearest ocean. Yet our state stone in Michigan, because we find so much of it, is fossilized coral. Was our planet once covered with water? To the highest mountains. We also find tons of living creatures. We find their bones buried all over the place. I think I have a bone in here, yeah. This is a dinosaur bone from a dig this summer. Again, when an animal dies out there, does it just sit there and some mysterious dirt come and cover it and preserves it? No, somebody scavenges it, eats it up, it rots, decays, whatever. But why then do we find endless animals fossilized, buried? This summer on a dig that I went on with the Southwestern Adventist University, we go, in 1 month, we find over 10,000 fossilized bones. And we're only digging in a spot smaller than this stage. And the whole state of Wyoming is filled with the stuff. Not to mention the whole world. I mean, the stuff, there's so much buried, preserved stuff under our feet. It's amazing. We also find evidence for the flood through ancient characters. This is the ancient Chinese word for boat. It's made up of 3 different characters. What are those 3 characters? Vessel, 8 people. You guys know what story we're talking about. And it doesn't say vessel of 12 people, because it specifically was referring to the story of Noah. And there's a bunch of these. And if you're into this kind of stuff, Google it. I mean, Google the word creation. You'll be blown away. I'm going to leave it a mystery, so you guys go look. More evidence for creation, the Ice Age. The Ice Age. Now, I'm from Michigan, so I'm always ready for cold weather in case it starts snowing or something, right? You never know, right? You guys have probably figured out we're full of surprises here. Oh, it's snowing already. You guys like snow? Why don't we make some of our own snow? We're going to snow right on this man right here. He's anxious for the snow to come, right? You ready for snow? Okay. My kids are like sitting out the window looking for snow every single day. They're like, Dad, when's it going to snow? I'm like, hopefully never. But the reality is in Michigan, it's going to snow. It's just a matter of time. Now, why is there so much snow in our poles? That's the question. Because in Michigan, we complain we get 2 or 3 feet of snow. In the poles, there's some parts that have 3 miles deep of snow. What would cause so much snow to accumulate at the poles? That's a lot of snow. Did you know that evolution can't explain it? They have no idea. They have no model in place that can explain what would cause an ice age. They have no idea. But you know what? The Bible tells us. It's pretty simple. Warm water and cold air creates massive snowstorms. For those of you that have lived around the Great Lakes of Michigan and Ohio and all those places, you surely have heard of lake effect snow. You know what happens? The water in those lakes is warm, but the air coming off of Canada is cold. Warm water evaporates, the cold air chills it fast, and whoever is in those lucky first 20, 30, 40 miles gets pounded by snow. That's the lake effect formula. Now, what happened in the poles and during the Ice Age is just a global version of that. Where did the warm water come from? The water that came from the flood underground? Was that hot or cold? Yeah, very hot. The temperature of our Earth's oceans during the flood must have increased humongously. And if you know the thermal properties of water, you know that water does not cool down quickly. It's a very good retainer of heat. Imagine the entire ocean heated up. It would take literally centuries for it to cool off. What about the cold air? We know that during the volcano, during the flood, there was probably tons of volcanic activity. All that and geothermal activity. Imagine, because we have now that we know of about 1,000 active volcanoes on our planet, imagine God commanding all those volcanoes to become active. Imagine all the ash that would get spewed into the atmosphere. And we know now from a regular, ordinary volcano that would erupt now, the ash that it spews out can lower the Earth's temperature by 1 degree Fahrenheit for a year. Imagine 1,000 volcanoes erupting. Not to mention, imagine the evaporation from all that hot water, tons of cloud. The atmosphere would cool down dramatically. Coupled with hot water, a hot ocean, is a recipe for literally centuries of snowstorms. And it would be especially concentrated at the spots on our planet farthest from the planet, which are the poles. And we have evidence that those poles actually once reached down to as far as Missouri. And now for the last couple thousand years, they've been retreating. You hear about it in the news all the time. The poles are retreating, the glaciers, of course. Oh, quick commercial. Forgot I put that slide in, so now I have to tell you about it. Our ministry is called One Mustard Seed. Our goal is to teach this topic with a special emphasis for kids, because you know what? Kids are the ones that are taking the beating on this topic. Everywhere you look, TV, movies, museums, field trips, schools, national parks. They're all teaching millions of years. They're all teaching evolution. I mean, there's a museum right there. You've probably been to it in the Smithsonian, the Hall of Origins. 21 million of your dollars to teach evolution. So our goal is to fight that and combat that and give kids a chance to know both sides. So we create books. We're trying to do video series. I go around teaching and all this kind of stuff. So thanks. Appreciate it. This is what we're trying to do. So we're a nonprofit organization. If anybody wants to jump on board and help and support, we got lots of projects we'd like to do. I'm an architect by trade, but I've been doing this now for 5 years. God opened doors, and it's a pleasure and a joy to be doing this now and helping kids be able to defend what they believe in. And that becomes the key word, defend what we believe in. Because kids are attacked, they don't know how to defend, guess what? Falls apart. Falls apart. So I'll be outside later. I'll have some DVDs, and you can sign up for a free newsletter, whatever you want. That's just a little bit of background of who I am, what I do. Of course, I think Mr. Williams over there announced at the beginning that I write for Guide Magazine, or for Primary Treasure, a bunch of different magazines, and do projects. Always trying to teach this topic, especially to kids. One more evidence for creation, intelligent design. Now, you guys know who this is. Mona Lisa. Nobody here would believe that Mona Lisa evolved and appeared by herself, right? That'd be ridiculous. You look at Mona Lisa and you knew that Leonardo da Vinci drew her, right? That's intelligent design. When you look at something and you know somebody made it. Look at that chair. Did that evolve? Of course not. Somebody made it. Somebody made it. That's intelligent design. It's pretty obvious. This is an example of what I call low-tech intelligent design. A simple machine. Don't worry, I got another one in here. As usual, trying to keep you guys from not falling asleep. Simple little device, a mousetrap. One of the simplest machines that I could find to talk about what I call low-tech intelligent design. There's 5 pieces to this little machine. There's the wooden base, there's our little holder, there's our spring, our fake cheese, and our hammer. Why don't we give it a try? She didn't like my mousetrap. Sorry. All right, here we go. We're going to test it. She probably doesn't want to lend me her finger, I suppose. Here we go. Let's test it. Works pretty good. Very simple little machine. Now, would this machine work if I were to remove one piece? What if I were to remove 2 pieces? Could I ever say, if I remove 1 or 2 pieces, that this mousetrap is evolving? Would it be a mousetrap if it was missing 1 or 2 pieces? No. That's intelligent design. It had to be put together all at once in the same position, every material as it is. I mean, if the wood, let's say the 5 pieces are there, but the wood, instead of wood, it's glass. Would it work? What if the hammer was spaghetti? This was specifically designed, the right materials, the right shape, the right design to do one thing, catch mice. That's intelligent design, and it's a very simple illustration of how intelligent design works. Proof that somebody created it. So what would be medium tech intelligent design? I'd call it a computer, or a camera, or a tablet, or phone, whatever, right? Because it's considerably more complicated. We know somebody at least out there knows how to build them, not me, but somebody. And we know that somebody built this. Even more ridiculous, right, to think that a computer evolved, right? So what would be high-tech intelligent design? I give you bioluminescence, a firefly. You guys know how these things work. A little bug can create 2 chemicals in its body, which it mixes to produce its own light. On demand. You guys have seen them in these little glow sticks, right? 2 chemicals. You mix the chemicals together, and you create light. Pretty cool, but the difference is this little bug is alive, and it can reproduce itself. Would it be crazy to think that this evolved? Clearly, somebody made this. And that's alive. Catch. Oh, I was shooting for the kid behind you, but I'll get you one afterwards if you want. This is amazing stuff, though, right? Here's another one, white blood cells. You guys know what white blood cells do. You get cut, right? Your body doesn't want the germs and bacteria to get in, so your body sends white blood cells to the rescue. Your body was created by God to defend you and to protect you and to keep you safe. Look at the white blood cell. Look how it chases the bacteria around. Complex little tiny machines. It's a living machine. Got him. Off to find the next one. This is how God created your bodies. To protect you. And there's millions of these little miracles happening in your body every single second. Could this really have happened by itself? Because intelligent design does not happen by itself. The evidence points to a creator. That creator is my God. So can you defend what you believe? I do this with the kids, right? Because we're all going to run into somebody that's a little shady. And he's going to say, hey, I don't believe any of that stuff you say. I believe in science. I believe in what they tell us in school. So I ask you guys, are you ready to defend those people from those people that are out there? Are your kids ready to defend from those people out there? Because those are Satan's agents trying to get us to believe in his lies. Be ready. Be prepared. This is what it's all about. This is our Creator. This is why we live and exist. He knows every single hair on your head. He knows everything about you. He created you. Every tiny little detail in its place. I don't want any of us to be tricked. And I definitely don't want people out there to be tricked. There's a lot of people that are kind of living with lies. A lot of people that don't know the truths. And sometimes it hits kind of close to home. People that we love. People that are family. Dearest friends. That are being tricked, deceived. Our goal is to teach them, to show them in a loving way that Jesus, that God is our Creator. And to help them understand, to pray for them, and let the Holy Spirit do His job, work at their hearts. But we need to be prepared, and we need to understand, and to be able to defend what we believe in, because we will be attacked. We will be ridiculed. Why don't we talk right now to our Creator? Dear God, dear Creator, we're amazed by you. You're so awesome. We're humbled to be in your presence. Thank you for creating us. Thank you for leaving so much evidence in nature that shows us the truths that are in the Bible. Thank you for this event, Lord, that brings us together to strengthen our faith in the truths that the Bible teaches in creation. Help us to not be tricked, not to be deceived. Help us to take this truth, Lord, because that's what you've asked us to do. Take this truth to the people out there that are in the dark, that are being tricked and deceived. Help us to be brave, to have the courage to do what's hard, to stand up, even though we may be made fun of and attacked. Help us to put our heads together, to use whatever resource we can to get this truth out there, Lord, because the foundation of what we believe starts with creation. Help us to always stand up strong and proud for you. We love you and we worship you for the rest of our lives. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you. Glory to God.